I just want to tell you publicly, I love you, and I pray you live the rest of your life. Oh, we're not doing no cutting. We'll leave it. I just want to tell you I love you. I pray you live the rest of your days for Jesus. And thank you for introducing me to trucking. I didn't quit. I didn't quit. Today, I wanted to make a short video talking about how I got into trucking with no CDL. I realized since I started this channel, a lot of new subscribers and viewers never saw my first interview I did 2 years ago on Truck and Hustle, which is another YouTube channel that provides daily trucking content. That's the only podcast I've ever been featured on so far, and that is where I discuss how I got into trucking and my journey up to that point. So before I keep dumping more episodes, I wanted to just make an episode so y'all know who I am and how I got into this. A little bit about me before I go into the story. I was born in Long Island, New York, to Haitian parents. My mom and my sister raised me. I have one brother and one sister on my mother's side. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister on my father's side. I would spend some of my summers and Christmases with my dad after 8 years old. I'm the only child between my mom and father. I was the last child that they both had. I went to private school in Long Island, New York. I got bullied by these 2 boys and no one would help me when I complained. I reached a point that I wasn't going for it anymore. And I did an act that got me expelled. When the bully knows that you're going to keep coming, even if they whoop you, they'll leave you alone, because a bully likes to give out pain, but they don't like to receive it. So after that incident, I was sent to the Bronx to go to school, where I had a Jamaican principal named Miss Swan, who was very good to me. The Bronx and Long Island is a good distance apart. So my mom would pick me up late to take me home a lot, because since my mom worked near the Bronx, so when she would get off work, she would always pick me up late, or try to have one of her coworkers to pick me up, so I wouldn't be at school so late. But one day, it was a regular day, it was late. She picked me up, and when we got home, there was a burgundy van parked by our driveway. When we pulled into the garage, 7 men jumped out that burgundy van, and my mom was trying to close the garage, but they stuck their foot by the sensor, and the garage went back up. My mom and I were victims of a kidnapping in Long Island, and it was a traumatic experience for me, because my mom was my everything. She still is. It was the first time I saw a man overpower her and throw her into a van, and there was nothing I could do about it. I felt scared and helpless. The kidnappers put a gun to my head and made me get into the van. I wasn't scared at all, because I thought the gun was a toy, because I only saw guns on TV. But seeing my mom get put into the van is what made me compliant, because I just wanted to be next to her. I was fresh off dealing with the bullies at that private school, but I realized these were different bullies, so I didn't act a fool, because I saw them subdue my mom. Up to that point, I had never seen my mom answer to anyone. My mom and my sister were my king and queen. But they took us to a hotel and held us for a long time. And they were negotiating whether to release us or not. I remember my mom pleading for our lives. They let us go, and after that day, I never went back to my childhood home. I never slept in my bed again. I never saw my friends again. We lived in someone's attic in Queens with my cousins for a short while, and then my mom and I moved to Atlanta. Now, before we moved to Atlanta, my mom was trying to figure things out, and she didn't want me living in the attic that we were renting, and me and all my cousins would be packed in there, and it was always so hot. But it was fine to me, because I was surrounded by my cousins, so we had fun. There used to be rats always in the attic, and I still remember when we would set up mouse traps and put pieces of cheese on the trap, and in the morning when I would wake up, I could see the rats that got caught overnight, and it was so cool to me. It was cool to me, but my mom didn't want me to keep living like that while she was trying to figure it out. So she made an agreement with my dad for him to keep me for 3 months. Now, when I went to my dad's house, it was life changing to me because I was exposed to a different level of living I never saw before. I went from being in the attic, hot attic, packed with all my cousins, to now in this huge Mediterranean home with palm trees and the pool. I didn't even know a pool existed. And then I meet my siblings on my dad's side I never knew existed up to that point. So me and my new siblings were doing whatever we wanted because my dad worked at his clinic all day, and he wouldn't get home until late. But he got so frustrated with the ruckus we were causing in the house, he sent me back to New York after 2 months. My other siblings, he sent them back to their mom. So now I'm back in the attic after I was just in the big house, palm trees, and the pool. But once I was exposed to that at a young age, even though I was back in the attic packed with my cousins again, in my mind I was still in the big house. I was just still seeing palm trees in the pool. I knew from that point I wanted a life of living nice, driving nice cars, and having a beautiful girl. Because the girls I saw in Florida at that age, I never knew existed because I never saw that in the environments I was raised in New York. And my mom raised me as a man to stand on his own. She raised me in a way to understand at a young age that to know that whether a woman stays in your life or leaves your life, my lifestyle should never change. For example, this is just an analogy how my mom would try to instill in me. For example, if I have a mansion and a woman leaves me, I shouldn't have to go move into an attic. I better do as a man what I need to do to keep my mansion. And I will share how she shaped my mind to adopt that way of thinking at a young age. She did the best she knew how to teach me the mindset that a man should have. Because my mom also stressed, don't settle for a pretty face and a nice body. But eventually, she was able to find a place in Georgia, and we moved out from the attic. I still would go back and forth to New York because my sister was sent for me while she was going to college and living in Queens. I was almost kidnapped again, but at the last second, my sister was able to grab me, and the person sped off in the van. My sister and my mom are my everything. I wanted to be a doctor because in Caribbean culture, it's either doctor or lawyer, or you're a bum. My mother is a registered nurse, so growing up, I used to work in the nursing homes, and I used to ride with my mom when she did home health visits. One of my dreams is to provide affordable senior housing because I love the elderly. Because I was the activity coordinator growing up when I was a kid in the nursing home. The only actual employment I ever had was working at Liberty Church in Marietta, Georgia, where I worked in childcare for 5 years. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit because my mom would always tell me as a kid, I am your mother and I take care of you. And this is what my mom would tell me. She says, I'm your mother and I take care of you because it's my responsibility. But don't you ever ask a woman for $1, because the minute you start asking women for money, they will still sleep with you, but they will lose respect for you. You're supposed to take care of a woman. If it's not me or your sister, you better never ask a woman for money, no matter what you're going through. If you get married, whatever your wife makes is none of your business. And that's what my mom would preach to me as a single mom. She would tell me, just because I'm taking care of you as a, she would tell me, just because I'm taking care of you as a single mom doesn't mean it's okay. So don't get confused thinking you can let another woman take care of you. That's what my mom would preach to me. So I would always try to start businesses growing up. And I had a successful sneaker business while working at the church and attending college. and I taught myself how to trade the currency market back in 2012. So I'm well versed on knowing how to trade. I taught myself chart patterns. Forexfactory.com is a website that I would utilize to monitor economic events. I read every book written by Jack Schwager, who was an author that interviews traders. I once tried to apply to Goldman Sachs to be a junior trader. My trading style was simple. I just studied price action to identify my support and resistance levels. I would incorporate Elliott wave, and I was a swing trader, but it took me a lot of time to hone in on the style that fitted my personality. I only traded the weekly and daily charts, and I used the 4-hour charts for my entry points. This may sound like foreign language to some, and I can go on and on, but that's what I used to do prior to trucking. Working at my church, I studied currency charts. I studied currency charts 18 hours a day, even while at work and in class, and I sold sneakers. I went to college to do my pre-med, and I dropped out after 2 years to get into the trucking industry. My father started a trucking company as a side business. His main business was being a doctor. He got 2 trucks and started a truck company as he was approaching retirement. He started it with my older brother while I was in college. While he started it with my older brother while I was in college doing my pre-med. I asked him for an opportunity to manage it, and he told me no, because it was an endeavor he wanted to do with my brother. Eventually, business went south when he did it with my brother, and I asked my dad for an opportunity to manage the trucks. I was so motivated to do well because he was distraught on how it went south when he tried to start the business with my brother. Also, it was an opportunity for us to have a closer relationship, because I didn't grow up with my father because he lived in a different state since I was 2 years old, and him and my mom never shared a home together. So I ensured him I can do it, and I dropped out of college. When I came into the picture now, my dad had lost well over 6 figures by that point, and I wanted to help him make his money back. But I underestimated the learning curve that was ahead of me and the tuition for this new learning curve called trucking that was going to cost. The deal I had with my father was, as long as you provide the financial support, I will hustle to learn this with my life so you can make your money back. And I meant that. At that time in my life, my walk with Jesus wasn't as strong as it is now. So the length I will go to make something happen was not rooted in wisdom. So after 7 months, my father reached a point when he couldn't financially support anymore, because he was preparing to sell his clinic and didn't think it was wise to continue to invest in this new endeavor. And by that time, he had purchased a total of 4 trucks. One of our last conversations was, he told me, if you need money, sell a truck. If you need more money, sell another truck. And if you need more money, sell another truck. And if you need more money, then sell the last truck, because this is a monkey business and you're being delusional. I was crushed, because he once told me he believed in me and I was the son going to make him proud. And 7 months later, he tells me I'm delusional, I failed, and it's over for me. And when I asked for help for like groceries, the answer was for me to go sell a truck. I had no money to put into trading and wait for my setups to occur because I was trying to survive. And it's not smart to trade money you can't afford to lose. It throws your psychology off, and you'll be very impulsive and lose money fast. So at that time, I was facing eviction at my apartment. I had no other source of income, and I gave power to depression. I got a title pawn on some of the trucks so I could cover my personal bills and pay for advertising to get a driver. I didn't have my authority, so I would lease my truck onto companies, so the turnaround time to receive money from my truck would be anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks sometimes. The reason why it took so long is because when you lease onto companies, the driver you hire is subject to the discretion of the company you lease onto. So it would take a week or 2 to get a driver approved. Then you had to have your driver go to that company's orientation, which was scheduled the next week in a different state. So I would have to put gas in the truck so that driver can drive the truck to orientation. So now the driver has orientation for 1 week. By the end of the week, when the driver is out of orientation, there's no loads to run because the weekend is around the corner. So now the truck has to run the next week. Now, when the truck has its first week of work, you don't get the settlement money for that week until the next following week. But guess what? The whole time your truck was in the system of the company you released onto, is still accumulating the weekly expenses for the insurance, plates, ELD, escrow, and trailer rental. So by the time you finally have a week of revenue, all those accumulated deductions are deducted, and you still have to pay your driver. And if they terminate your driver due to their safety standards, then you're back again not getting money from that truck for another 4 to 5 weeks. So I was in that cycle for a long time, and it was stressful. I had to do a lot of things to survive. My cousin gave me his credit cards that I maxed out. My sister loaned me $5,000 so I wouldn't get evicted. I tied upon my personal car for payroll. The trucks my dad bought, I had tied upons on them, and they were up for repossession because I couldn't keep up with the payments. I used to get merchant cash advance. I'm sorry. Be patient with me, y'all. I used to get merchant cash advance loans, which is where you get lent money through small shady financial institutions at like 50% interest rate, and they deduct the money from your account every day. So it was a lot of stuff I went through in a short amount of time, and a lot of decisions I had to make under pressure to survive, to where I developed an unhealthy mindset that was not rooted in wisdom. And a lot of the things I did to survive I wouldn't recommend. But eventually I was able to get my own authority. But the 4 trucks my dad had purchased, 3 of them, well, 3 out of the 4, their engines blew out. And then the last one caught on fire 2 weeks into my authority. I started doing consultations and leasing on owner operators to my authority, and I started climbing my way back up. There's a lot more to the story that I will share, but I wanted to make this episode for the new viewers who never saw my interview on Truck and Hustle, where I go in depth on my journey, and it's a 2.5 hour episode. You good, man? Uh, okay, all right, brother. All right. Hey, we can leave this in there. Just let it ride. So, but yeah, the Truck and Hustle, which was a 2.5 hour episode. But even reflecting back on that episode, I realized I was still dealing with a lot of anger and traumas I didn't address. Making this content, I didn't address. But making this content and serving the viewers have been a form of therapy for me, because I reflect on a lot of things I went through that I blocked out. In that reflection, I realized something. In this podcast, I saw Alex Good Energy on, where he talked about his father, really brought it to the surface for me. I realized that a part of me has gone so hard to grow my company to where it's at today. It's because I wanted to prove my dad I wasn't delusional, like he told me. I wanted to prove I was able to do it without him. I wanted to prove I could do it without the trucks he purchased after they were all gone. I wanted to prove to him that the $873 in child support he always reminded me he paid was a good investment. I had a lot of anger. A few years ago, one of his close friends had told me how upset and envious my dad was of me because I was able to turn things around and start my own company. And it gave me joy and more energy to go harder when I heard it. When I heard that, it made him jealous. Where I am today now, it was foolish of me to channel it that way, because we don't even talk anymore. I went from wanting to make him proud to wanting my success to slap him in the face, and it hurts. I had to ask myself, what now? You did it, and he knows it. So now what? I learned from Martin Golden that just because something worked for you to get there doesn't mean that it will work for you to stay there. My motivation to prove my dad I can do it without him and his trucks worked 2 years ago. But that motivation don't work now because my mindset and heart has changed. So I transitioned to wanting to help people have a higher level of awareness. I went through 10 years worth of mistakes in 5 years. Some things I have to share in a more private setting, which is why I used to do consultations on Patreon 2 years ago, to where I could be more transparent. And maybe I can do that again as I continue to grow my channel and provide awareness, because I'm not a trucking guru or a trucking expert. I'm someone who has paid a price to learn what I know. And I have a lot more to learn, because the more money you gross in trucking, the more you learn. And I intend to keep grossing money and more money. For example, the level of awareness I had when I grossed my first 500,000, then 800,000. Hold on, what's up? Huh? Oh, Tom, hold on. Tom, hold on. We can leave it in here. We're gonna keep it going. Everything. So when I grossed my first 500,000, then 800,000, then I hit the 1 million mark, then the 2 million mark, then the 3 million mark, then the 4 million mark. I learned more as I kept grossing overall. And I have an episode that I'm putting together where I show all my receipts. I know there's only so much someone that has grossed only a 500,000 can tell me, because I've blown past that. But at the same time, I know there's someone that has grossed 10 million, and there's only so much I can tell them because they have blown past me numbers wise. That's how it works in this industry, because it's very hard to gross $1 million in trucking just off the running of your own trucks and no owner operators. It's a lot of work. It's not pretty. It's hard. Grossing $1 million in trucking with a fleet that's full of owner operators, and grossing $1 million in trucking with a fleet that's the majority of your own trucks, is two different $1 million and two different experiences. The profit margins are way different, even though the gross amount is identical. And I've done both, so I know the difference in both. The people who have grossed 10 million plus off the running of their own trucks aren't making content. They don't want to be seen. And it's a lot of systems, delegation, and time you have to invest to hit that mark. So that's why a lot of these people who's doing it at that level don't make content. I'm sure some might want to share, but they don't have the time, or they'll charge you a lot for their time. I know a guy in Georgia with 40 trucks all running, and he doesn't want any attention like that. He has no social media, and he has the time to make content, but it's not something he's interested in. I haven't hit the 10 million mark yet, so I have a lot more to learn, and as I do, I will share. There's a few ways to accelerate in trucking if you don't have a CDL like I did. It's either you pay for a well-reviewed course like the one Alex Goodenji has and sells, and apply what he teaches, or you pay someone to be your mentor and see if that mentor can prove with bank statements, tax returns, or factoring statements that they have grossed at least $500,000 with their own trucks and no own operators, so you can receive honest counsel from them, and not fall for the charade that a lot of these, quote unquote gurus promote. Or you have to have enough cash to burn to figure it out, and have enough cash left to apply the lessons you learn after figuring it out. Or you find someone who is successful and develop a genuine relationship with them to teach you for free. I couldn't exercise any of those ways because my path was different. I had to be very intentional on creating relationships, and a lot of relationships supported me when I didn't have any money. I'm surrounded by a lot of people that you can't pay them for what they do. That has always been my saving grace and a big weapon for me. The shop you see me in now, where I'm shooting my content, I didn't have the money for the down payment 3 years ago. 3 years ago, my sister is the one that fronted me the money because she always believed in me, and I paid her back. She manages a lot of the back end of my company today, along with my nieces that are in high school. I taught my young niece trucking because I trained her. I trained her how to do the billing and all that when she was really young. By the time she's 19, she'll know how to run a truck company just like me. My current payroll for my company is around 60,000 a month, and my only desire is to triple it because I love the level of serving trucking has allowed me to do. So, that's my story and how I got into trucking without having a CDL. And I had a lot of people help me along the way. Even the operations manager in my fleet, who was at one point a driver, stayed with me. Even when I couldn't afford to pay him, when I went through a really hard season, I couldn't have done this without him. And so many other people behind the scenes that didn't think I was delusional. You know, I heard 50 Cent say one time he never thought his success would have cost him his firstborn. I think about that sometimes for myself. I never imagined the milestones I reached in trucking would have cost me the relationship with my father. Even though we didn't have a tight father and son relationship growing up, I thought trucking was going to be the start of it. Nevertheless, I want to tell my father something publicly because in Caribbean culture, everyone talks, so he might see this. So, Poppy, I'm sorry for anything I did that hurt you. I couldn't understand the level of stress you dealt with after investing over 100,000 before I got into the picture. I do understand now how it feels to spend that type of money, and I could have been better with being more responsible, but not getting an apartment as soon as the trucks made a couple $1,000s, adding expenses too early on myself. I'm sorry for the miscommunication because we both couldn't understand our stresses. I pray for you every day. I pray for the joint pain I know that you have in your finger and in your lower back. I'm not looking for a reconciliation because I know the reality of the relationship I desire won't ever exist, and I know I have to guard myself spiritually. I just want to tell you publicly. We won't leave this. We ain't do no cutting, no cutting. I just want to tell you publicly. I love you, and I pray you live the rest of your life. Oh, we're not doing no cutting. We'll leave it. I just want to tell you I love you. I pray you live the rest of your days for Jesus. And thank you for introducing me to trucking. I didn't quit. I didn't quit. I want to say thank you for the new viewers and subscribers that continue to come each week and support this channel. And be on the lookout for the next episode. I know this episode didn't have a bunch of gems I'm dropping and all that, so I'm gonna drop another episode within the next 72 hours, so we can get back on schedule. But I just wanted y'all to know who I am and how I got into trucking before y'all start watching all this content and think I'm just somebody that just came up out of nowhere and to talk about some trucks and all that. But all right, I'll see y'all on the next episode. All right.